Hey everybody, this is Mr. Marshall here at Stony Lane. I'm coming to you because I know that you and your class have done some work around what's called a punctuation inquiry, where you were studying commas and looking at sentences that had commas, and so some of the classes here at our school were doing that, and they came up with something called touchstone sentences. Touchstone sentences are sentences that kind of represent the types of sentences that they saw. So, like this one is from Mrs. Etlinger's fourth grade class during their comma inquiry. It says, I studied a lot, yet I didn't remember everything on the test. I studied a lot, yet I didn't remember everything on the test. So, what we want to do when we're studying sentences that have commas in them is we look at where the comma is, and we know that the comma separates two parts of the sentence. So, we have to look and see what's on the left and what's on the right of the comma. So, let's take a look. I studied a lot. That's the first part. I studied a lot. It's kind of just like saying something that happened. So that's kind of like it's an action, right? It's an action. I studied a lot. Like that could be a sentence all on its own, couldn't it? I studied a lot, period. But the sentence doesn't do that. The sentence goes on. So let's look at what's on the other side of the comma. Yet, I didn't remember everything on the test. Yet, I didn't remember everything on the test. So, what is that? Right? It's like another action, but it's not, right? Because it's got this word in the front, yet. If the yet wasn't there, that could be a sentence. I didn't remember everything on the test, but the word yet makes it different, right? What does that do? The word yet kind of sets it up like, well, I did something, right? I studied a lot, right? It's, I said that. The yet kind of changes it, doesn't it? Because you would think that if you studied a lot, you'd be fine on the test, right? But yet says something's coming. That's a change. It's something that's different. So this sentence has an action and then sort of a surprise, right? I studied a lot. Surprise. Yet I didn't remember everything on the test, right? There's some words that happen like that right after a comma in the middle of a sentence. Yet is one of them. There's a couple more. Let's make a list. Let's make a list. Here we go. Yet is one of those words. Another one is but. But. Another one is however. Yet, but, and however. Like all three of those words would work, right? Let's look back at our sentence. It says, I studied a lot, yet I didn't remember everything on the test. I studied a lot, but I didn't remember everything on the test. I studied a lot, however, I didn't remember everything on the test. All three of those are sort of like, surprise! Even though you studied hard, you didn't do well on the test. Okay? So that's sort of like a surprise sentence, right? With a comma in the middle. It has an action and then a surprise that comes after the comma. So we're calling that an action, comma, surprise sentence, right? Mrs. Etlinger's students found a sentence that was like that in a book, and they made this one up to be like that. Okay? So now we know that that's a kind of sentence. It's something that's called a complex sentence, which you'll learn about later, but it just means that it's a little bit bigger. Okay? So now, so what? Why do we care? Here's why. Because if you know different kinds of sentences, you can use that kind of sentence to revise your writing. Okay? You can use it to revise your writing because if you have more complex sentences, that's one of the things that makes writing more beautiful and more interesting, and it helps you to kind of get your message through. Okay? And this sentence that we're talking about can help get your message through if you're writing about something that's surprising, right? There's no surprise there because it's a action, comma, surprise sentence. Okay, so I'm going to show you a piece of my writing now, and then I'll show you how to use that to revise it. Okay, here we go. This is a true story. It says, it was a hot afternoon at summer camp. I remember standing in the middle of a busy field, looking around at all the people I thought, what a great day it was. All of a sudden, my new friend, Andrew, came up to me and he said, "Guess what? I know someone who has the same last name as you." I wondered who it was. I knew a lot of people. None of them were named Marshall. Who could Andrew be talking about? We ran past the field where some kids were playing soccer. We went past the pool and the snack stand. I still kept thinking, who could it be? All of a sudden, there we were. There was a circle of boys standing there, talking, and in the middle of the circle was, yes, my own brother. Andrew then introduced me to him. "I want you to meet this guy," he said, and my brother and I locked eyes and started laughing. "Nice to meet you," I said to him. Andrew asked if we knew each other. "Yes," he said. "We're sort of brothers. Twins, in fact," I added on. We laughed so hard because we knew that we were so different that someone would actually think they needed to introduce us to each other. Funny story, right? True story, too. I have a twin brother who's so different that we look that different that someone would think they could never even know each other, right? But it's true. So, now here's what we're going to do. If I wanted to revise my writing, because that's what writers do, the first thing I want to do is I want to think, well, this is a surprising sentence. So I have to find a surprising part of my writing. I can't just do this anywhere. I can't just do this anywhere. I have to find the place where there's sort of like a feeling of surprise. So let's see. Um, well, the most surprise happens, I guess, right here in this paragraph. All of a sudden, there we were. There was a circle of boys standing there, talking. In the middle of the circle was, yes, my own brother. So I'm going to change that paragraph around a little bit. I'm going to do some revision. I'm going to try and revise by by creating a sentence. I might change a sentence that's there already, or I might just write a whole new sentence that fits this structure. Okay, so let's see. Let me get a pen. All of a sudden, there we were. There was a circle of boys standing there, talking. In the middle of the circle was, yes, my own brother. That's the sentence. That's the surprising one. In the middle of the circle was, yes, my own brother. So let me see. I want to start with an action. Um, let's see. What would be an action? Um, I was. I knew that he was my brother. Now I need a surprise. But Andrew didn't. How does that sound? There was a circle of boys standing there talking. In the middle of the circle was, yes, my own brother. I knew he was my brother, comma, but Andrew didn't. Okay. Does that make my writing better? Maybe. It kind of tells a little bit about Andrew and how this was like such a surprise, right? I knew he was my brother, comma, but Andrew didn't. Okay. How about the right here? I wondered who it was. There's kind of surprise there. I wondered who it was. I knew a lot of people. None of them were named Marshall. Who could Andrew be talking about? So I think this part is a little surprising too. I knew a lot of people. None of them were named Marshall. I could say I knew a lot of people, yet none of them were named Marshall. I just had to add the word yet with a comma, right? So sometimes it's like that. And I could ask myself, well, does that make my writing better? Well, it does because now I have some short sentences and some long sentences next to each other. And when you have short and long sentences next to each other, that's another thing that makes your writing sound better. Okay? So you see what we just did? We just took a touchstone sentence, we named its parts, we thought of which part of our writing felt that way, and we changed the sentences. We added sentences, We just added a few words, and then we asked ourselves, does that make my writing sound better? Does it make me feel like I'm saying my message better? If it does, then that's a good revision. So why don't you try that? Play around with that. This can be really fun. Okay. And see if it makes your writing better. And then maybe we could talk about it next time.